Go ahead and get started, and we will let people in as they appear. So thank you everyone for joining us today on today's webinar, When Do I Hire a Marketing Agency? I'm gonna share my screen real quick. See all of our lovely faces. All right. Let's see. So marketing efforts are more important than ever, but is enlisting the help of a marketing agency right for your business? In this webinar, we put together a panel of fantastic experts to help you make an informed decision and consider the role an agency can play for you in your organization. Today's webinar is brought to you by Ciarza Social Digital. We are an innovative digital marketing agency that specializes in comprehensive digital solutions and strategies across many industries. Our services include, but are not limited to, social media content development, advertising, website marketing and development, search engine optimization, email marketing, and videography and photography. We also work with our brands on traditional public relations and advertising campaigns, always keeping in mind our flair for digital. Notable brands trust us to expand their digital reach, while traditional agencies collaborate with us to execute their mission. Our mission is centered on producing fresh and innovative solution platforms for our clients with a focus on unsurpassed personalized service. So a little bit about me. My name is River Marquez. I'm an account executive with Ciarza Social Digital. I've been here for a little while now. I'm also current secretary to and chapter officer for the board of directors for the Public Relations Society of New Mexico. And I graduated at UNM with a degree in communication and journalism. It's a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication. Next up on the panel is John Bell, the former Vice President of Enterprise Digital Marketing for Travelers Insurance. He's been leading digital transformation, marketing, and capability building for top brands around the world for more than 25 years. Most recently, he had led the enterprise digital marketing team at Travelers, putting data-driven content, digital marketing, and social engagement at the heart of his work. He launched the Travelers MarTech strategy and Travelers Engagement Center, the home of the content marketing team. John joined Travelers after 13 years at Ogilvy and Mather, where he founded Social at Ogilvy, a social, global, and digital marketing practice. John drove digital and social strategy and programs for major brands, including Ford, Nestle, IBM, DuPont, and many others. He lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he serves on the board of Presbyterian Health Plans, the premier health insurer of the state. Next on the panel is Christian Kletkely, the Senior Digital Strategist for Search and Gather. She's a results-driven digital marketing manager with a passion for building omni-channel strategies. She previously led the performance marketing strategy across paid search, social, and display for IKEA Canada with the agency Cassette, and now works at Search and Gather, a boutique performance marketing agency that helps startups and medium-sized businesses like Heyorka to achieve their acquisition goals. From Heyorka is Joe Teo. He is the CEO, and Heyorka is a social media management platform that is helping global marketing teams get their jobs done faster together. He was featured on Twitter Canada's list of 20 Canadian tech startup founders. Joe is inspired by the challenges and rewards of helping build the future of marketing. Heyorka itself has been named one of the top 20 B2B tech companies in Canada by G2 Crowd. More than 400 marketing agencies around the world use Heyorka to save time and stay organized. Heyorka is proud to be a world-class software served with Newfoundland hospitality. So today, the webinar is going to focus a little bit on the relationship between what a role an agency plays in an organization's marketing strategy. So we're going to discuss agency versus in-house tactics and strategy and how that ties in together, as well as other marketing tactics that should be allocated both to agencies and in-house, and what it means to be capable versus available, and how that plays into the role agencies play. So I'm going to stop this presentation for a second. And we're just going to pull it up here. All right, so the first question is for y'all. What do you think a good role is for an agency to play in an organization's marketing department? Should agencies be considered a marketing department? Christian, do you want to go ahead and start with this one?
Sure. So I think there's like no one size fits all approach to this. I think there's lots of different types of agencies. You know, you could have a 360 media planning and buying agency, a more like boutique performance agency like S&G, a creative, etc. And then client needs are very different as well. So I think it really depends on the match there in terms of what the best fit is. So for us, sometimes we come in and we just act as a consultant. We'll audit an account and just kind of provide the best practices for a brand to bring it in-house after, or even train them up for a 3-month period or something like that, and then kind of touch base after. Or sometimes it's a longer term engagement. So I think it depends is my answer. But for an agency that's a little bit more specialized, I think you're trying to play one or a few roles within the company. I think an agency that has maybe a larger scope of work probably plays a few roles. So for us, it's we want to be your acquisition manager or your conversion rate optimization specialist, and maybe do a bit of performance creative, etc. I think the best situations is when the marketing department doesn't rely solely on an agency, and when there is someone championing that marketing strategy internally, because I think the best synergy kind of happens when someone internally has learnings about engineering and has like conversations about multiple touch points within the company that they can bring to those conversations to work with the agency, is my thought.
All right. And John, you've had a long history of working with agencies and in-house. So what would you say is an appropriate relationship for them to have?
Well, it's a great question. So I do come from the brand side most recently, having built this team, digital marketing team at Travelers Insurance, which is a big property and casualty insurer, and also having worked in the agency side at Ogilvy. And I think like Christian says, there's no right answer. I would say this, that when I was hiring agencies at Travelers, I just basically thought in terms of strategy, execution, and specialisms, right? We had ownership inside largely of our marketing strategy overall. That was just where we were at. But we didn't have capacity issues, right? I don't think any, even big brand like by Travelers might be considered a big brand with lots of resources. We never have enough resources to execute everything that comes up during the year. And so we did look to our agencies to help us with content marketing, or content production, I should say specifically. We did look at agencies to help us with what's become highly technical SEO, search engine optimization of that content, both in the tech side and the content side. And then there were a ton of specialisms. Like, it just wasn't practical for us to do our own media buying and placement. So performance agencies like, Search and Gather, as I imagine them, played a very important role, because it takes a certain threshold before a brand wants to bring on media buying, media planning and buying inside their company. So, I think those are the outliers. There's a lot that's changed. We may get into that in a few minutes in terms of the marketing landscape over the past few years. And I would say that the trick now for brands is to figure out what are those enduring capabilities that you need to own and grow inside your company to be able to compete and win in whatever your business is tomorrow. We did that at Travelers. We figured out what we needed to be great at internally. And then we partnered with really excellent firms. Like you guys. So I think the trick now is to figure out what you need to have in-house that's going to bring you the most value over time.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like Christian and John, what both of you were saying is it definitely depends on what the in-house team's needs are and what the agencies can provide. So Joe, what do you think about that?
Yeah, just echo, all of your statements. I think there's no one size fits all. I think that's important to note. So you can't necessarily copy a playbook from another company because their needs are different. Then the second part, to your question, you should absolutely treat your agency as an extension of your marketing team. But I think the important thing, just to reiterate what John and Christian has said, is to really understand what is your soul, what are some of the core capabilities that need to be built in-house, and what are some of the capabilities that requires more expertise that can be supplemented with people that actually have in-house knowledge, and then both of you work together to actually drive results. I guess like just to make it more specific for us at Heyorka, we actually use Christian's team. They're a part of our team for a long time. But for us, we knew that anything to do with product, anything to do with product marketing, we need to own that because we know our customers, we know the story that we need to tell. Then we bring it to Christian and we sort of brainstorm, give her context in terms of why this product is being built, who we're marketing it for, and then Christian comes with expertise around how we're going to target the people that we actually want to reach. So really understand what needs to be in-house and build those muscles. And then what are some of the other things that are beyond the center, like outside the core capabilities that you need to bring someone to help you with.
Definitely. And we actually have a very cool and unique perspective here because Christian, for Search and Gather, you work with Heyorka and Joe. So that's really cool to hear kind of both sides of those things. So John, you kind of touched on it a little bit. What has changed in marketing that affects how brands should hire agencies? And what are the benefits to an agency versus in-house? I know that we've talked a lot about like, just it depends on capability, but do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. I mean, the first few years at Travelers was spent figuring out what our agencies, quite frankly, were not going to do for us. And it wasn't because of lack of capability on their part. It was more about how things have changed. So I think there's three things that have changed that caused me to look differently at this set of relationships. So one is kind of this overall broad move to customer centricity and customer experience. And this is coming from the brand side. So a lot of brands are realizing how important customer centricity and how they serve and bring value to their customers matters, all the way down from their digital experience, from their websites to their call centers to whatever. And I think that's causing a lot of companies to build up resources internally to be able to deliver that. And so where they might have gone out of house before for managing their website or their digital or evolving their digital experience. Remember, websites are not, we don't just build them and launch them and leave them anymore. It's now in this kind of organic kind of customer experience. So I think the rise of customer centricity makes a big deal when you think about like what's happening in COVID, especially here in our market in Albuquerque and New Mexico in general. We've had businesses who never had e-commerce capabilities have to flock to that in very short order. And I think that most of them probably have gone to partners for that, but essentially they're going to have to decide whether they bring that in-house. The second thing would be, I guess, just the rise of data-driven marketing in general, especially the importance of what we all call first-party data, the kind of data I have on my customers. That's going to become more and more important over time. And I don't want to get into geeky, arcane stuff because it's not helpful to most people. But with the cookieless future and how we're going to be able to market to people going forward, a brand's ability to really grow and build their first-party data about their customers and then use that as a basis for marketing, I think that's going to be core. While they might outsource that to begin with, it can't be outsourced for long. And then the third thing, so I don't want to go long here, is really, actually, I think it's about the importance of content marketing, the best of content marketing, where we're actually attracting and trying to bring greater value to our prospects and customers with really valuable content. We're trying to earn their attention, if you will, and their engagement. It's an antidote to too much advertising, an antidote to too much content, quite frankly, in our feeds out there. And again, that's changing who we look to for partners. As a brand, I created a lot of content internally. I couldn't create it all, especially video content. I had great video production partners externally. I had great writers externally, that were extending the capabilities of our team. So I think those are three things that I think are having a lot to do with changes in who you look for, what services you look for in a partner.
Yeah, definitely. Very good takeaways. Joe, Heyorka works with over 400 agencies. So what would you say the relationship has, or how has marketing's changes impacted how agencies are hired?
I think, just to build upon John's point, just by the fact of, social media and content marketing getting more and more complex, every channel has its own has its own criteria, its own way of working. It's almost impossible for a team with a limited resource to actually cover such a large ground. And I think how it changes people's perception of agencies, I hope, is that they actually see agencies as a partner to bring those tactical level expertise and strategic level expertise in relation to these channels to the table, and for the company to actually provide the data around their customers. Like John said, like that's where the company can actually add value. Understanding what their customers would resonate with, what their customers are looking for. And I just think it fuels the need to actually have supplementary help. And it depends on your goal. If, let's say, the goal is to, just run your marketing or run your business as usual, and there's not much of a need of a growth, then maybe you could get by with, with the current marketing stack. However, I really do think that if you're looking to improve and looking to take your business to the next level, you do need expertise. If you can't get them in-house, then you got to look for someone that are doing it every single day. And I think the added benefit of an agency is that they are able to see a wide variety of patterns and not just one. And they were able to bring ideas, inspiration to the table. And so we have weekly calls with Christian, and we're able to ask her what she's seen in other clients, what she's done with clients that are similar to us. And we're able to sort of like bounce the ideas off her while bringing in customer insights. So I think it's just fueling the need for agencies. If you don't use agencies, then I think the core capability needs to exist in-house. Either ways, you kind of need to figure out how you're going to supplement, those technical challenges that you have.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying, a big benefit of having an agency is their innovation and variety that they bring to the team. Definitely. Christian, what about you? What do you see as the agency side of things?
Yeah, I think kind of echoing John and Joe's points on one, kind of moving into digital. I think that's a priority for a lot of brands, is they want to see, I have a specific lens in terms of like type of agency, but they want to see that agencies of the future are, investing in programmatic media, in kind of new trends and things like that. And kind of going to John's point of having like innovative solutions to things like cookies and things that are going to come up in the future, whether or not that's an immediate need for them right now or not. So I think one, just kind of like change in the digital landscape. I think second would be changes in kind of consumer behavior within the past year. So I think ever more brands are looking for agencies that are like flexible and willing to adapt their marketing mix and strategy. And like you can make a yearly plan and plan for a year, but in reality, it's kind of taking things month by month and trying to be like agile and a bit more fluid. So I think that's going to be something that is more important for a lot of kind of traditional agencies. Mm-hmm. And then I think like moving away from just even the marketing lens is like how agencies communicate with clients during pandemic and as people are working from home and things like that. So as Joe mentioned, just kind of like more touch points, maybe using internal technologies that clients are using to communicate with them, just to be a little bit more transparent, to be like, okay, what is my agency doing? And to have that trust there.
Yeah, definitely. We totally understand having to adapt how we communicate with our clients based off of what they use. We pretty much have no limit on what software we use day to day because of how many clients we have that just like to use different things. So definitely understand that. And Christian, go ahead, Joe.
One thing, can I just build a little bit on what Christian was saying? Because I think she made a great point. And that's that, I mentioned customer centricity as one of the three things, and you mentioned the importance of, what I'll call voice of the customer, right? So this is about, things have changed so much that there's a lot of pressure on all of us to really understand what our customers need on a moment by moment basis. And there's no better example of that than when COVID hit. So when COVID hit for all intents and purposes in March of this past year, one of the things we realized was, the research we did against our customer from 3 months ago doesn't matter anymore. And our ability to market at all to them, if that's appropriate, or how to market to them and when to market to them, was going to require kind of, almost moment by moment kind of understanding of what was going on. So we launched these consumer pulse surveys every 2 weeks. And we could have done it more frequently, but to be fair, we couldn't consume it any faster. So we looked at changes over every 2 weeks amongst our consumer audience. We also did the same thing with our B2B, but I'll keep it simple for now. And we're talking about homeowners, right? So what were they struggling with? And it changed, you know, obviously big fears about the actual medical and health emergency, uncertainty about the economy. One thing that was constant was the fear of the unknown. It's like, okay, what else is going to happen? But it allowed us to better understand when they were ready to hear about, you know, doing things at home to help protect their home because they're spending so gosh darn, you know, much time at home, and they want to be distracted from those fears. It gave us that input. So the onus, I think, now is on the brand to spearhead constant insights from our customers. It doesn't mean we can't turn to partners to help us bring those in, get those insights in. But I think that's one of the big changes that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of on that same note, if you're a smaller, medium-sized business that is going through these changes, what should you be looking for with an agency to help? And what should maybe you avoid? Or when's it good to bring someone in-house? And Joe, if you want to go ahead and start with this one.
Yeah, I think it sort of relates to the points that we've made before. Number one, there's no one size fits all. So your situation will be unique from your friend's situation if they're running their own company. I know we'll touch on this later, but you want to understand why you're sort of bringing an agency. Is it a capability issue or is it an availability issue? So what I mean by that is, do you have the expertise in-house and it's just a matter of time, or is it more so that you don't have the time and expertise, and so you need to bring someone in-house? So you've got to be very clear around why you're bringing someone in-house. And just to use ourselves and Christian as an example, for us, we knew that we didn't have both when it comes to paid advertising. So we knew that from a paid programmatic side, we didn't have the capability or the availability because we were such a lean team. And so we knew we needed to bring an agency in-house. And so one of the really important things is to make sure that, when you're bringing your agency in-house, that, they actually have a champion on the client side. And so that's sort of like how I would go through in terms of like knowing what you want to bring in-house and what you want to do, bring what you want to sort of outsource or bring a partner in, or which one you want to actually keep in-house. So you want to start with, what is the problem that you want to solve, and is it a capability problem or availability problem? And that way it sort of like gives you a little bit of bearing in terms of what kind of partner you're looking for and why you're bringing them in.
Yeah, and you mentioned capability versus availability. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, or maybe just expand on what that means to you?
Yeah, mostly like time or expertise, right? So if you're bringing Christian in, let's say we brought Christian in for her expertise and also time, then, we know that this whole tactical section, is sort of her ownership. So when we actually meet every single week, I know on my side, I'm bringing in her insights from what I'm seeing from a sales perspective, but she's owning, paid strategy recommendation, and I'm not actually, driving that. I'm actually giving recommendations based on what I'm seeing. By the end of the day, she's the expert that I brought in, and because I'm bringing her for the capability and availability thing. If you're bringing someone in for the availability thing, that means that the strategy is still on your plate and you're driving the ship, and the other person is just executing it. So it changes the dynamic of the agency relationship, I think, if you look at it that way.
Definitely, yeah. Christian, what do you think about this one? If you're a small or medium-sized business, what should you be looking for in an agency? From the client side, what have you seen that your clients have needed or requested or asked of you?
Yeah, so I think working with a lot of like SMBs from very early stage startups to kind of more established medium-sized businesses, I think their needs can change depending on their stage. So a lot of early stage startups might need to prove just revenue right away. And so they might need something bottom funnel just to prove to their investors and their board. So I think depending on like the specific tasks or things that you want to outsource. It kind of depends on your stage of business too. If you're looking for more growth, like long-term growth, you're investing probably in the full funnel. That's when you might need more like content marketing, like just different kind of things from your agency partner. And then I think that needs to be balanced against the capability versus availability piece on like where your gaps in your organization are and where your agency partner can fulfill those gaps.
Yeah. So when would you say it's good to consider bringing someone in-house versus having an agency, or maybe vice versa? Maybe you do have an in-house team, but you are looking to expand your capabilities. When do you think would be a good time to kind of look at making those decisions?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's a balance. I think it's like some of the benefits of an agency are definitely having some vertical specific and industry specific knowledge. And it just comes with having a portfolio of clients that you can kind of go to those best practices, and you're expediting learnings. So rather than having someone in-house who you might possibly might expend some time just getting to those best practices, hopefully with an agency partner, you're starting at those best practices and then testing and learning from there. So yeah, it depends just like on your speed, on capabilities in-house. And then also just getting like an extra point of view, I think can be pretty beneficial. Like a third eye kind of consultant to sometimes challenge things that are currently being tested and look outside maybe the confines of like the brand guidelines or something that you're currently running.
All right, yeah. John, what would you say for this question?
It's a good question. So I mentor a lot of startups here in New Mexico now. That's part of my new kind of life here. And, this is through Accelerate New Mexico, which is part of Central New Mexico Community College, CNM, Ingenuity. And so they need help creating that marketing plan for a burgeoning business, right? And mostly focus, right? They don't need this full-bodied thing. I think this is building, off of what Christian was saying. They don't need this full-bodied thing at this time. They need something fit for purpose, right? They have very lean resources. They have a clear goal, whether it's to get to another financial round or whatever, or acquire customers in between financial rounds to prove that they've got a viable business. So I think that because they're inherently lean, mean fighting machines, they need help with that marketing strategy and plan to begin with. And quite frankly, they're probably only going to have one or two, not even full-time people focused on marketing at their disposal within their organization, if they have one. And so they're going to need a lot of support in the short run. And that's fine because they're very goal-oriented, right? I need to get to 1 million customers. I need to get to the second round of financing. But when you get a little bit bigger than that, a kind of sustained small business, then I think you have to get back to what I said before about deciding what you need to retain control of, what's going to be core to your business going forward. I do think, customer data management is really a hard thing to outsource for a lot of reasons. I mean, you can get help with it. And I should say this, as a small business, you can, or even a medium-sized business, you can turn to an expert agency to set something up and help leave you with a capability, not just create a new revenue stream for them. That's just the specific kind of ask. So helping you with your data strategy so that you can then take that forward. I would love to see what Joe and Christian think about this. I actually think that bleeds over into CRM. If you're a business that relies on CRM, whether you're B2B or plenty of B2C businesses use customer relationship management, which is driven by your customer data program, tied into your sales effort. I think that's, help with your CRM is really hard to outsource. And I'm not talking about the software platform, because of course that's whatever, Salesforce or whatever you've got. But I do think that's something that's really tough to outsource. But anyhow, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and Joe or Christian, did you have a response?
Yeah, I think for us, like we've been working really, I've been enjoying working with Christian. I don't know how long, but for a couple of years now. But it's been really great because we actually speak the same language when it comes to our CRM. So we use HubSpot, and they know HubSpot as well, which is great because Christian can actually independently go into HubSpot and pull data for herself, and we're not the bottleneck. At the same time, she also trains me. So I think this is another good point. You kind of you don't have to be an expert in what your agency does, but you gotta at least know a little bit about what they're doing, so that if you need the data, you can also retrieve it independently off them. And so, for us, we own our customers. We own our customers' data in the sense of, the CRM component, but Christian has access to it as well. So when we work with Christian together, we know we hire them for the capability and availability piece, and we don't treat them as an outsource. So we don't use the word we've outsourced our paid digital. We just said we bring expertise from the outside to supplement what we don't have. So more of a partner kind of relationship. That way, it's sort of a two-way door to our CRM, and she's able to sort of get data. She's also on our Slack as well. And so we're able to make sure that we're communicating, in real time. So I think it's really important when you're looking for an agency that's familiar with the tools that you're using, and also is open to actually communicating in a manner that you're comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it comes down to good communication. And that's sort of, I would say that's why, we work really well. Christian, I don't know what you think about it.
No, I agree. I think you've always had kind of that marketing language, and that's been a benefit to us. You've also pulled us into like revenue meetings and different areas of your business, which I think has just kind of helped us to gain a more like holistic picture of Heroica versus just being your paid digital agency. Like I don't think the relationship is that. It feels more like a partnership, as you mentioned, and then that leads us to just doing better work. Yeah.
Sounds good. And you mentioned, so it sounds like you both kind of started getting on the same platforms, HubSpot, Slack. I don't know about you, but when I get Slack notifications now, I just get stressed out because we use it so much, but totally fine. And you have talked a lot about the really good positive sides to having agencies that are specialized in what they're doing. Do you want to touch base a little bit on maybe when that would be a bad thing for an organization to have their agency very hyper specialized? Christian, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can jump in there. I think there's definitely situations where it's a negative. I think if the needs of the brand or the client aren't clearly defined or can't clearly be solved by that specific agency, then you kind of come into the same issue where your agency is now out of scope and doing things that they're not the best in. So it's kind of the same as doing that internally with an employee who's maybe not as great as they could be in that specific like realm. So I think that kind of is where then maybe it's better to find a larger agency with kind of different verticals or different specialties. Albeit sometimes then, you also come into the issue where it's more of like a generalist agency. So I think it's really dependent. But I think it's, if your needs are for that specific specialty, then it can be great. But sometimes the needs of the client go beyond what an agency can fulfill. And that's when it doesn't work out.
Yeah, very good takeaways. John?
I don't really know if I have anything to add. I mean, it's basically up to you on the business side to know what you need. Do you need a full service, broad agency who's going to be very good at many things and okay at some things? And then or are there specialisms in your business that really require you get that expert? I mean, we had an expert SEO agency, Seer, that their expertise was very deep, and we didn't ask them to do anything different. They were smart in terms of expanding their domain and portfolio with us, as they should, but it was all kind of tied together in that niche of SEO and content marketing. But I also knew that, for the bulk of the video work that we had to do to fuel this content marketing effort for personal lines insurance or for commercial lines, I couldn't rely on my TBWA, who's a tremendous, advertising agency, but hadn't really figured out how to produce video content at scale for a price that made sense. I had to go to another specialist for that. So again, it's really up to the business to figure it out. Or again, if you're small and don't know how to figure it out, hire a consultant or hire an agency who's great at strategy to help you figure it out and honestly help you know what you need to do versus what you need to look for outside partners to do.
All really good points. Yeah. Joe?
Yeah, I'll just add, you want to understand what kind of agencies you want to work with. And also that corresponds again with your internal capabilities. So there are pros and cons in hiring like a full stack agency or a general, more of a like a bigger agency and maybe a specialized agency. So I think an easy way to think about it, again, it's capability and availability. Let's say you have a marketing manager in-house. It's not an availability problem, but really you don't know how to run influencer marketing. So you go to a specialized agency, you bring them in. However, the marketing manager is there. So, you have someone that's actually managing the programs, and, the agency is sort of this highly specialized part-time employee, if you will, that's still part of your process. So you shouldn't see them as an outsourced shop. They're not, but they're actually a partner. So, the other side of things, a pros of like going for a full service agency is that you actually don't need to manage the program, because they usually come with they usually have a lead account manager with you, and that's your main point of contact, and they're going to coordinate the tactical execution on that side. So if I don't have a marketing manager, then I would choose an agency that actually have an account manager that's actually going to manage the programs for me. But if I have a marketing manager that's competent from a generalist perspective, then I know I can build agencies specialized under him or her, and they'll be able to coordinate the campaigns for me, or I have to do it, right? So it depends on how you see it. So I say, like, if your needs are more general, if it's full stack, if it's email, it's social, it's content, and you just need somebody to get it going, then go for someone that has more broader capabilities. But if, let's say, it's a very specific thing because you're launching an influencer campaign, then make sure you have a marketing manager on your site, or you are actually quarterbacking that initiative, and then find a specialized agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So we've talked a lot about the various roles that agencies should play, especially when it comes to your internal team and what you have the capability for, what you have the availability for. And that's really the key takeaway, right? A lot of the times companies and organizations do have maybe the capability, but they don't have the availability, or the other way around. So what do you feel is really a good client relationship to have between like you and your client, or maybe the client and you? And we've talked about this a little bit, but Christian, did you want to start here?
Sure. I think it comes down to transparency and good communication. So I think from when you first engage with an agency, I think, not over-promising results. I think especially with like the rise of data-driven marketing, you can kind of like attribute everything to a sale and have direct metrics on everything. And I think it's easy for an agency to overpromise, but I think just being transparent on like, trust us, and kind of being able to deliver bad news just as well as good news on the agency side, I think is really important. So, things aren't going well this week, but what can we do to improve this? I think that's important. Just being transparent about results builds longer term trust. And then I also think, having a little bit of healthy friction between ideas is always a good thing. I think longer term trust will be built when you kind of are able to challenge someone, and then that results in increased results. I think that's always a little bit healthy, because at the end of the day, an agency should be another point of view coming in with hopefully some expert knowledge.
Yeah. John, what about you?
Yeah, it's funny when I think about the keys to getting a lot out of the relationship. I think of 7 things. I'm only going to give you 3 now to just, be brief. And if we have time, we'll come back. But, one is, first of all, know your goals, right? Know your measurable business goals. How is whatever you're going to be doing in marketing, or whatever specialist niche that your agency is going to be providing, how is it going to be measured against how you make money? Acquiring new customers, creating more value from the ones you have, maybe enabling a sales channel, or potentially just building brand. And so I think it's up to you to know your goals. I think the second thing is it's a partnership, stupid, so to speak. It's a partnership. I hate when people talk about vendor relationships, and partnership means that, you're both empathetic to each other's business needs, right? It's not just getting someone to do stuff for you. And I think that's a commitment to a long-term relationship, perhaps the kind that we're hearing here from Joe and Christian, I think, in their particular relationship. And I think the ones that you value probably most in your business as well, River. So those are two. And then the third, well, actually, a quick example on the partnership thing. So I had to create a whole new voice marketing strategy using Alexa and Google Home, and to be fair, we didn't have deep capabilities in that. So I turned to my partner at that time, which was Sapiens Cognitive Experience Team, and they helped me kind of define the program, but also sell it into executives internally. That was a really strong partnership, which then led to some follow-on business for them, which was great. I think the third thing, you get what you put into it.
Yeah.
You can't, the whole idea of like, I hired an agency and they're just going to magically make it all happen. It's just like, it never works. Awesome briefs, timely reviews and approvals, clear direction and feedback. I mean, these things are all really critical. When COVID hit, I had to bring TBWA in to help us expand our social media program for our small business customers and consumers in this case.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, and that was like, we were meeting every day. We had agile stand-ups and it took a lot of work on our side to be ready for them, because the last thing we wanted to do is to leave them in the lurch and not be able to produce for us because we didn't give them clear direction. So you get what you put into it. Those are three.
Yeah, great example and great input. Joe, real quick, do you want to answer this before we head into Q&A?
Yeah, I'd say like, just ask yourself a question. Would you hire them as an employee? You can. When you're considering an agency, it's very important to be on the same page, not just capability side, but also your value system. Because again, like you're hiring help, but you're also, forming a partnership and a long-term relationship. So it's not something that's short-term. And so you got to ask yourself, can we be on the same page around how we do business, how we treat our customers? Do I see the same values? The same thing as the employee. Sometimes you'll find an employee that's, a high performer, but candidate is high performer, but you just feel like on the value side of things, you guys are just not seeing eye to eye, and in the long term, it's going to be more painful, and you just got to walk away. So I think like a great agency relationship looks like someone that's actually, if on the flip side, if they join your team, that could be a good employee. Like that's, I think you're probably hiring the right agency.
Yeah, and we actually have a great question from an audience member, Michael Barrio, who kind of touched about this a little bit. For the nonprofit sector specifically, what do you find to be the most effective way of communicating a need to hire a firm utilizing the capability versus availability measure, while understanding that nonprofits often have very tight budgets and very specific needs?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know who you want to answer this. I have a thought, but I don't want to jump on it.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, look, a nonprofit, I mean, if you're hiring an agency, they're there to either further the mission or further one of your business metrics, which is, I don't know, drive up membership, fundraising, or whatever. And so the degree to which you can demonstrate that bringing in this agency will improve or accelerate, whatever your mission goals are, whatever your membership goals are, whatever your fundraising goals are, I think is the key to getting support from the senior leadership. I would, that's been my experience with the nonprofits that I've worked with. So that would be my quick answer to that.
Yeah, Christian or Joe, do you have any insight for this one?
For me, I would say like the other way to look at it is the opportunity cost that if you're still doing all these things on your side, on your own. Let's say if you're so let's take an example. I think like number one, every business is constrained in terms of resources. No business would say I have enough resources. We're always constrained. But So this is not particularly, so it's not just unique to nonprofit. I do know that you guys probably have like more constraints, but this is sort of the reality for every business. But the other way to think about it as well is, what's the opportunity cost of you still maintaining that program? So for example, in my case, I could probably take on Facebook ads. I could probably learn how to run Facebook ad marketing, but what is the opportunity cost? The opportunity cost as the CEO of the company is massive. Like that means I can't work on product, can't work on culture, can't spend enough time on the company direction. And not only that is a net negative as a whole, because I'm probably not going to do, I'm probably on the wrong seat as well. So, wrong person, wrong seat. But if I bring Christian in and she takes this and elevates it, it's already going to be a net positive. Plus, if I can sort of like work on things that I'm uniquely capable of doing things, then I'm actually bringing as a whole the company, to the next level. So I think if you can also not only look at the goals, but also look at the opportunity cost of you doing these things, whereas we can bring in an expert and freeing you up to to do strategic things that the company needs you to do. I think that's a very compelling case as well. And a lot of times I see agencies start with a pilot project, and the purpose of the pilot project is to build trust, and then the follow-on contract and so forth. So that's sort of my take. Look at it from an opportunity cost standpoint. What's the cost of you doing that marketing program right now, as opposed to hiring an expert to do it?
Yeah, very good insight, Christian.
Just one final point would be, I think there's also agencies that specialize in the not-profit world, and who are probably more aware of certain grants or things like that. Like you can get Google Ads grants or Facebook Ads grants for nonprofit. So I think there could be a benefit to using an outside firm too that's like maybe more specialized. So you might want to ask about just like what verticals they have worked in before. And then some agencies will take different charities on for pro bono as well. So I think it's like just worth kind of seeking all the opportunities out there.
Yeah, really good answer. So this question is actually for John from Crystal Ciarza. As an agency owner, sometimes we see other agencies get territorial, quote unquote. How do you manage this as the client?
So when I was at Ogilvy back in the whenever, wasn't that long ago, actually. It was about 8 years ago. And there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of, there was a lot of pressure on having multi-agency rosters at brands. And then you'd always you'd assert one of them as like the lead, and it wasn't for whatever reason. And their responsibility was to manage this. And, it was freaking nightmare, man. It never quite worked out well. There was always infighting, end running. But that being said, I think now things are a little bit different, because that agency world, by the way, has disintegrated in a big way because of the changes going on in the marketplace. That big, holding company world, which isn't quite as relevant to this audience. So things are different today. So it brings me to the fourth kind of tip I would have, which is know who your partner is in the relationship at the agency or agencies, right? Who's that go-to person? Who's committed to this working today and tomorrow for the business? And, if I were doing work with Search and Gather, it might be Christian. It might be the CEO of Search and Gather. I don't know, but I knew my partner at Sapient, and I knew that he would work things out. So I looked him straight in the eye and said, well, you're going to work with TBWA on this. And I had the same relationship with someone at TBWA. And I think it's really about knowing who your individual partner is, who has that same long-term commitment to the relationship overall, and not settling for just having an executioner as your kind of day-to-day person. That would be my answer to that.
Yeah, definitely. Joe or Christian, did you have any insight for this one? I know this question was specifically for John, but it's open to everyone.
I was going to say, sometimes we work with agencies that also have capabilities that we have in-house. So some of the work will be divided amongst two. And I think, it's about having those partnerships and not treating it like two separate agencies. I think that's that's what's going to just improve results in general, and is probably going to result in more agency work going forward. So I think from the brand side, seeking out partners who are just willing to work with other agencies, I think is quite important.
Yeah, very interesting perspective on that one. Joe?
I don't have anything to add on this question.
All right, no worries.
I think they have good points. Yeah.
All right. And this next question comes from Danielle Lucero. So what role should data and metrics play in an organization's decision to hire an agency versus keeping the marketing in-house? Joe, did you want to start with this one?
Yeah. I think it has to do with a significant part of why you would hire an agency or, decide to hire an agency. So, first and foremost, the data and metrics that you're looking at should be in-house, where you store them. You got to know how to slice the data, how to actually interpret the data. But in terms of making how it plays into the decision of hiring an agency, if looking at the data and look at where you're actually performing not as well, and you ask yourself a question: is this important? Is this metrics important to you? If it is, then the next question is this a capability problem or is this an availability problem? Capability problem, okay, we got to find someone, or we hire someone, or we hire an agency. And then it comes up to the question of how much budget do we have? Because I much rather hire a part-time agency as opposed to a highly competent part-time agency resource, as opposed to hire a full-time incompetent resource in-house, right? So I look at my budget and say, if I can't hire highly competent people into full-time because of budget constraint, then do I want to upskill myself and use probably not use the 12 months to learn that skill, but probably won't even hit that the benchmark that I want myself to do. So again, then I would go to, let's hire a competent part-time agency partner into this project. So I think the data gives you signals in terms of where you should zero in on. Once you zero in on that, then you ask yourself capability, availability, then you ask yourself how much money you have. And then if you have a limited budget, probably better to go get an agency partner, because the great thing about agency partner as well is that they sort of like, you can actually understand whether or not this is a right role to fully invest in the future before making that upfront investment, too fast, if that makes sense.
Yeah. John, did you have anything to add for this one?
I would just say, if I understand the question correctly, I would just say oversimplistically, thinking about customer data and performance analytics, not completely independent, but kind of two ideas. I need, as a business, small to medium-sized business, eventually those need to come in-house to me. And I'll tell you why, because first of all, I need to own my customer data. I need, I can't let someone else manage that, and I need to build the capability to understand how I'm using it, right? It doesn't mean I can't use outside partners to help with that. And every outside partner I would ever work with has to be very data savvy. And then on the performance metrics side, what makes everything strategic? When you measure it against outcomes, and so while again, I can rely on someone in early stages to set that up for me and manage it, perhaps externally, eventually that's going to have to come in-house, because that's what's going to help me understand, is my performance growing the business? In overall, should I increase marketing spend, and so forth and so on. So those would be my two points.
Yeah, really good insight. Christian, did you want to round this up before we end?
I'll just leave that. I think they made some good points there.
All right. Well, that concludes today's webinar. Thank you all so much for participating. A big thank you to John, Christian, and Joe for being such good sports, and for helping us, and for having really good insight to everything that we talked about today. Main takeaway: think about the availability versus capability of your organization when you're looking to hire outside. So yeah, thank you everyone who joined us, and we will go ahead and end here.
Thank you, River.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, John,
Bye.
Christian, and River. See you guys.
Great job, River.
Wait. We have to stop the recording.
I can